Mrs. Thatcher had something else to fight for today, the deal that she signed yesterday handing back Hong Kong to the Chinese.
Prime Minister, on Wednesday you signed an agreement with China promising to deliver over 5 million people into the hands of a communist dictatorship. Is this morally defensible?
Out came the red carpet tonight for the visit that the Chinese regard as especially important. Mrs. Thatcher certainly needed her fur hat and collar this evening. The temperature for her arrival in Peking was well below zero. The Chinese Foreign Minister, Mr. Wu, all smiles, was there to greet her. And there's no doubting the joy of the government here as the last formal moves are made, which will mean the recovery, as they always call it, of Hong Kong. And so earlier today, the flags of welcome were raised in Tiananmen Square and across the Avenue of Heavenly Peace. Though it must be said that the skill with which the flags were put into position and the fact that those in the bicycle rush hour didn't give them a second glance underlines the frequency of important visitors here these days. Some of these flags were last up just 2 days ago for the President of Sudan. But this time there are more flags on display. Another sign that Mrs. Thatcher's visit is being regarded as something rather special, culminating in tomorrow's signing ceremony in the Great Hall of the People. As well as attending the signing ceremony here in the Great Hall tomorrow, Mrs. Thatcher will also be holding talks here with Chinese leaders, including Deng Xiaoping. During those talks, she'll try to move on the relationship between Britain and China, now that the question of Hong Kong has been settled, to one in which a great deal of trade and business between the two countries can be done. But there is one niggling worry. That's the fact that the Chinese government are still refusing to allow any direct participation by the people of Hong Kong in the forming of the new laws for the colony after 1997. At the moment, the Chinese are simply saying that the people of Hong Kong will be consulted. Michael Brunson, News at 10, Peking.
Can I have some light on the other side? Okay, thanks.
Today's ceremony was a carbon copy of the initialing of the agreement in September, but with this difference: the fact that two prime ministers were now committing their governments to quite remarkable actions, with the British side handing back territory with a population of 5.5 million people that we've held for 150 years, and with the Chinese promising not to introduce for at least 50 years the methods they use to run their own country into the new territory of Hong Kong that they'll soon acquire. No wonder then that Mrs. Thatcher called what happened today unique.
We are privileged today to take part with our Chinese friends in a unique occasion. The circumstances are unique, the agreement is unique. It is right that we should feel a sense of history, of pride, and of confidence in the future. May I thank you for the privilege of doing this.
One thing was very noticeable at the ceremony. Despite the fact that the agreement was signed for China by their Prime Minister, the real leader of the country, Deng Xiaoping, who technically is only chairman of an advisory commission and who usually stays in the background, decided this time to step into the limelight. So it was he who led the toasts with Mrs. Thatcher first. And it was he who led her from the room. The Prime Minister has had a very busy day. It began with the formal welcoming ceremonies this morning outside the Great Hall of the People, with Mrs. Thatcher not only inspecting the usual guard of honor, but but getting a colourful welcome from the school children. The Chinese always press into service on these occasions, and seeing a formidable display of military strength during the march past. The Prime Minister then began her round of meetings, first with the Chinese Prime Minister, Zhao Ziyang, which expanded into a full formal session with both countries' delegations, at which it was already clear that both sides want America and Russia to take note that if Britain and China can solve their differences by talking, the two superpowers ought to do the same. It's a theme that Mrs. Thatcher took up at a grand banquet tonight in her honour.
The world can draw a lesson from the successful outcome of our joint enterprise. That determined negotiation can succeed, where confrontation would surely lead to disaster. That goodwill and friendship can overcome misunderstanding.
It was always on the cards that with the signing of the agreement on Hong Kong, that relations between Britain and China would improve very dramatically. The witness to that, the huge flags that have been set up tonight over this very large banquet here in Peking. And those relations are going to be further improved still, it seems, by the fact that the Queen is almost certainly going to visit China in 1986. It could almost have been a British election tour, but Mrs. Thatcher had something else to fight for today, the deal that she signed yesterday handing back Hong Kong to the Chinese. Mrs. Thatcher got a lively welcome at the huge new housing projects she went to see. No apparent signs of any doubts here over Hong Kong's future. And the Prime Minister was soon into the sort of campaigning routine that she slips easily into, even enjoying a seasonal Christmas greeting from some rather engaging toddlers. But among the better off, the more prosperous residents of Hong Kong, there are still plenty of doubts, more even than the official assessment of opinion exercise has revealed. Doubts about passports and about the sort of laws that China will introduce here. So Mrs. Thatcher's job in her speech tonight was to offer reassurance.
I bring to you the strongest possible commitment on the part of Her Majesty's government. We shall do our utmost to ensure that the assessment, the agreement, works. And I bring from my talks in Peking with the most senior Chinese leaders a similar commitment. They assured me that for their part, that the agreement would be faithfully implemented.
Hong Kong has taken the news of the signing of the agreement in Peking yesterday quite well. Indeed, with some enthusiasm. The stock market is quite buoyant today. Now begins the really difficult part, the 13-year transition up to 1997, when China finally takes over. Michael Brunson, News at 10, Hong Kong. Okay. Not everyone in Hong Kong thinks that what Mrs. Thatcher has done is wonderful. Though the Prime Minister saw only 6 agitated demonstrators as she left for Washington, she was reminded at her press conference earlier, where it was the tiring pace of her tour perhaps which forced the rare public use of her specs, that many Hong Kong residents are privately worried about the future.
Prime Minister, on Wednesday, you signed an agreement with China promising to deliver over 5 million people into the hands of a communist dictatorship. Is this morally defensible?
I think you would have had great cause to complain had the government of Great Britain done nothing until 1997. And I believe that most of the people, indeed the overwhelming number of people in Hong Kong, think the same. You may be a solitary exception.
Perhaps the most hopeful sign for the future is the fact that Hong Kong is beginning to get its sense of humour back. This board game about the time from now until the Chinese takeover is the Christmas bestseller here. The game's a light-hearted look at the good times and the bad which might happen till then. So one year the stock market's booming, Another year, things are so bad that people are leaving, but finally, in the year 2000, Hong Kong keeps its freewheeling lifestyle. Michael Brunson, News at 10, Hong Kong.